Rachel doesn't really want to see the bloody arrow hanging up.
I'm warming up to the idea.
It's like not everybody has that little souvenir of saying, "Hey, I got shot by an arrow."
Not everybody.
But not everybody probably wants that.
No.
I plan on making a shadow box for it and putting it somewhere in the house.
I'm warming up to the idea, but yeah, the fact that it still has blood on it, I'm just like, I'm still a little weird about blood.
God has a dream specifically for you. And if you don't play your part, it won't get played. And if your part doesn't get played, I assure you, souls can be lost. The world doesn't need another John Paul II or Mother Teresa. The world needs you. And your ordinary life has an extraordinary mission. Now is your time.
You're listening to the Extraordinary Mission Podcast with Dr. John Wood. Dr. John Wood is an optometrist, author, speaker, and saint in the making. He has published 3 books and speaks across the country, energizing the church to pursue our extraordinary mission. And now, your host, Dr. John Wood.
Welcome to the Extraordinary Mission Podcast. I am your host, John Wood, and this is the podcast where we talk about our extraordinary mission of becoming the saints that we were created to be in the middle of our ordinary life. And sometimes life isn't so ordinary. Sometimes there's amazing things that happen, some incredible experiences that can happen to us. And in this series, we're talking with Collin and Rachel Snyder about a pretty incredible experience of Collin being shot in the leg, both legs, with an arrow just in his backyard. And we kind of left you on a cliffhanger last time, although we do know that Collin survived. He's here with us today. Say hi, Collin. We went through the experience of him getting shot through the arrow, shoot through the eggs with an arrow, the ambulance ride. Rachel talked about her experience of going through this really, really stressful, crazy night where she's not even sure her husband's going to survive. You lost 2.5 times the amount of blood in your body. You take a couple days before you actually wake up, recover, and we kind of got to that point. And now in this episode, we want to talk about what happens after the accident, what happens on your road to recovery, what happens as you building your faith life, reflecting back on this experience and maybe sharing that with others and how it can influence them by the way that we all live our lives. So thank you for coming back on the podcast with me and sharing this whole experience with us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah. All right, so let's pick up where we left off. We left off where Collin's just waking up. He was shot on a Sunday evening. Mm-hmm. He wakes up on Tuesday morning after the accident. Rachel described going through that whole experience the night. At this point, you know that everything's probably going to be okay, right? Like he's gonna make it. But what's the prognosis that you're getting at this point on Tuesday morning, right when he's waking up? What are they saying about the repair of his legs? Is he going to be able to walk again? Do you know that? Is he going to make a full recovery? What were you told at this point in the process?
I don't think they were telling us much because they don't see this very often. They can't tell us for sure. But we did know that he had the reflex really good on his left leg, I think, and then his right leg there was a reflex there and stuff a little bit weaker. But so we were really hopeful about that. That was like the one thing that they were looking for, and it was there. And but other than that, we just didn't know. We knew he was alive, and hopefully no infections would take place with all the surgery, and it was still pretty unknown.
Yeah. So being a whole alive thing, that's probably a relief, right?
Yeah.
So,
it's nice.
But now you kind of it's nice. Moving on to the next level, it's probably you got to be wondering as you wake up, what's the extent of the damage here? What am I going to be able to do? Am I going to be able to walk again? So what are you feeling? Is this something that you're immediately kind of worried about, or is it just kind of you're thankful to be alive at this point?
Definitely thankful to be alive, and thankful that they're reassuring us that the surgery went as well as it could have, because I think one thing that we're grateful for is the paramedics, the nurses, the doctors, everyone who had a hands on.
There's such a big team of people to save one life.
We can't even pinpoint the number of how many people were involved in doing this, and that's without all of those people working together as a team, there's no chance I survive,
Or all the blood donors that have donated all that blood that was there, and they pretty much said you kind of bled them dry there. No pun intended. But everybody that all the people, just the chain of people that went through this whole process that got you to this point. So
we're grateful for every single one of those individuals we met quite a few of them, and not as much some of the nurses and doctors that had a key role in it, but
we'll always remember them.
Grateful for them and grateful for the gifts that God gave them and their passion to do what they do each and every day.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about Psalm 23. This is a psalm that most people know, most people are familiar with. It's something that that I usually recite in many of my talks. That I feel like one thing I want people to get to realize is that the bad news of the gospel is death. Like, we all face death. Like, whether you're an atheist, a Buddhist, a Muslim, a Christian, agnostic, it doesn't matter what your opinion is or what you believe. Death is the bad news. You and the people you love, at some point, we're going to face death. And so the Psalms, Psalm 22, Psalm 23 is something I've reflected on a lot, just understanding that shadow of death. So walking through the valley of the shadow of death, talk a little bit about Psalm 23 and how it's influenced your life before and after the accident.
Yeah, one of the first times I heard it was one of your talks, and you're rattling it off without looking at any paper. I'm like, wow. I was like, it spoke such peace to my heart and everything. And so I think I went home that day and I was like, Rachel, I was like,
I'm going to memorize it.
I was like, this psalm, like, I need this as like a key prayer. Like, it, like, you don't know how it made me feel. And I ended up like memorizing it, and it just became such a big part of my life. We would take, before we had Samuel, our dog, was the center of our life, and I'd take him out to the reservoir a couple times a day. And, I love nature, and it brings such peace to my heart. And I would just recite it out at the reservoir, and no one else is around, and you can be as loud as you want. And it just brings peace to you, knowing that, you have a Savior. He is there every step of the way, and that, your destination isn't here on earth with suffering. It's in heaven. And I think Psalm 23 covers all that and more. And they took the breathing tube out, and I think that was one of the first things it just came to me. Like, I couldn't not recite it. Like, I was joyful to be alive. I was joyful. I was at peace, and it just kind of just flowed out, and it was a special moment. It was my way of thanking God for giving me life. And
yeah, it's pretty incredible. And going back to the last episode, I kind of had asked this, but the time between passing out on Sunday and waking up on Tuesday, was that just like, describe for people, like, is it just like you went to sleep and
did you feel
just, like,
really rested?
Like, did you dream? Did you like, what were you?
I've never asked that question.
Yeah. Like, I'm just curious, like, what you felt or experienced, or if it was just like it happened in a blink of an eye where you just passed out and then woke up the next thing you knew.
Yeah, I've never been asked that question. I'm a big napper. I like naps.
Yeah, he is.
So it was a good nap, but I know Rachel was saying, I didn't experience any dreams. Rachel told me that, like, I had a lot of visitors during that time, and I would often be very distressed, like my heart rate.
Agitated. Yeah. Because he would start to kind of not come to, because they had him sedated, but maybe they had him sedated just lightly enough that he was a little aware. You don't remember. Yeah. But he would start to get agitated, and like, because I'm sure the tube was uncomfortable. He was like, didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, I did not like the tube at all.
No, yeah.
I mean, at one point, I remember having an operation and getting anesthesia and just like immediately falling asleep, and it's a pretty nice sleep.
Yeah.
But I remember, my wife telling me, like, well, I had these conversations with the doctor. I have absolutely no recollection of like what I said or what was I even there.
Yeah.
So I know you're probably a little groggy at the beginning of all that, and your memory's probably. But I remember coming and visiting you at the hospital shortly after, and I wanted to get you a gift, and so I went to the Shrine gift shop, and I'm looking, and I'm like, the first thing that came to my mind was Saint Sebastian. Like, he's the patron saint of athletes. You're an athlete. You're a pretty athletic guy, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go find a Saint Sebastian card. And so I found Saint Sebastian's card, because I know he's not only the patron saint of athletes, but he got shot by arrows, and which I'm like, wow, not too many people today can say they got shot by arrows. But listen to this prayer that was on the back of the card to Saint Sebastian. It's, dear commander at the Roman emperor's court, you chose to be also a soldier of Christ and dared to spread faith to the King of Kings, for which you were condemned to die. Your body, however, proved athletically strong, and the executing arrows extremely weak. So another means to kill you was chosen, and you gave your life to the Lord. May athletes always be as strong in their faith as their patron saint so clearly has been. Amen. So I was like, oh, that's so cool. Yeah. Like, man, wish I could have an arrow story. Not really. I'm just kidding. I don't want an arrow. I don't want the arrow. But I thought it was just really cool. Like the Lord chose another path for you to die. So do you feel like, listening to that prayer and listening to the story of Saint Sebastian, and sometimes we hear these saint stories and like, this is just made up. This is fairy tale and exaggeration that gets exaggerated more and more and more. But this is not an exaggeration. Like, you got pierced through both legs, and in the picture he only got shot with one leg there. So although he got hit in the neck, which would be a little bit more painful. Yeah. But this is a true story. This really happened to you. And do you ever step back and think, okay, God chose another path for me to die? Like, this wasn't my way to go. So what does God have in store for me at this point? What am I supposed to do with this gift? Maybe a gift that you get to start over and think about life in that aspect.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big question. It's like, does God have something in store for me? And I'm not like, I don't just have like this clear vision of what I have to do, but I'm every day. It's no different than anyone else. Yeah, I have to make the decisions. Am I looking for a second-rate version of myself, or am I desiring to be a saint? And what decisions am I going to make today? So that's the clearest thing to me that I've just meditated on throughout the process of recovering. Is just I want to be a saint. I desire that with all my heart. I'm still human though. Like, I have the weaknesses, and I have decisions to make every single day, every single minute, that are going to decide whether I'm going to become a saint or not, and am I going to lead a holy life. And so it's no different than that aspect. But
just our whole family too. We just like have this deep desire to just make God the center of our life every single day, and that accident like really pushed that home for us and inspires us to want to do that even more.
There was a gospel verse a few weeks after. We were staying up in Perrysburg with my brother after we got released from the hospital, in the rehab hospital. And so we were going to St. Rose up in Perrysburg for weekend masses. And one of the scripture verses was,
Thessalonians,
like the thief in the middle of the night kind of thing. Like
the day of the Lord is the thief in the night.
Know.
Death is a thief in the night. That for sure was.
Yeah, and we lived that, and we didn't want to live in fear that.
So many people go through life thinking religion and faith is for the elderly. I'll worry about that later. Or I'm young, I'm strong. I don't need, like you said earlier in your story, sometimes we feel like I don't really need God. And it's sometimes things like this happen to remind us and shake us up a little bit that I need God every single day. And that my most important thing in life is that relationship with God, and really all of us, have that Savior. Like our life is a gift. Life is beautiful. It is a gift, and our gift to God is maybe what are we going to do with that gift? What are we going to do with this life that we've received? And so, just really powerful to reflect on. So, Rachel, you got a little baby at this point. Samuel's 3 or 4 months old, and I got to imagine it was a pretty emotional experience when you brought Samuel to the hospital and you got to maybe hold him or see him for the first time. So tell everybody what that experience was like, bringing little Samuel to see his dad for the first time.
Yeah, when Collin was able to hold him for the first time, his dad brought Samuel in, and Samuel, like when he got closer to him, he saw him and he was just like, you picked him up, and Samuel's face it was like the saddest looking face. Like he really missed his dad. I've never seen Samuel, little 4-month-old Samuel, do that face before. Like we were all kind of in tears from it because it was just so beautiful. Like seeing him, and we have a picture of it too, of Samuel doing that cute little sad face looking at Collin. Like my daddy's here.
So and just you ever think about like the ripple effect, like that Samuel, and how important a father is in the life of their child, and that like Samuel's going to grow up and like that you're going to be there at all of his games or his track meets or whatever, like how much he would have missed all of that. And not only that now you have 2 sons. You have little baby Henry and my godson. So thanks for surviving. I appreciate that. And just every day being thankful for being able to watch your sons grow up and for them to have their dad available. I mean, that's got to be a huge blessing.
Yeah, that was one of my prayers, like during that crazy night when we didn't know if he was going to live or die. I was just like, God, like, why? We need fathers in this world. Like, why would you take one away? Like, that didn't have to happen. Why just let him live, because we need fathers. He needs a father to grow up with. I can't do it on my own.
Yeah. So what would you say? So this kind of raises, a challenging question, because many people do struggle with God and they struggle with faith, because in this life there is suffering, and many people have maybe been in a similar situation that you were in. In my own experience, I can say, my father was sick with cancer, and many people said, well, you just got to pray. You got to believe that God can heal him, can cure him. And sometimes our prayers don't end with that answer that we want. And so how do we explain that to people that maybe didn't have the miraculous or the amazing recovery, that maybe their prayers weren't answered in the way that they felt they should have been answered, and they're struggling with that same question? My child needs a father too. My child needs, this person in their life. So is there any consolation or anything you could say to those people who are maybe in that situation?
That's definitely one of the toughest questions, because suffering is such a, it's just a sore spot for all of us, because we all go through it, and we all, it's all just like, it's usually negative impact or negative connotation thrown to it.
Yeah, I thought of that question a lot too. Like, would I have reacted like this and had such a strong faith if he would have died? And like, I really believe that I believe our faith is true. And like, if he would have died, that would have been terrible. It would have been just a tragedy and really hard for all of us, the whole community and stuff. But like, it wouldn't have changed my love for God. It wouldn't have changed God's love for me. And because God defeated death. So like, yeah, we are all so scared of death because we don't know what happens next. Nobody really can know what exactly happens, and we're all afraid of the unknown. But God defeated death. Like we don't have to be afraid of that. That's why in the hospital room, when I went they let me go see him back in the emergency room, and this was like an intense example of how your spouse is not your ultimate fulfillment, because I saw him in there and I just was overwhelmed. Like when you see someone you love so much with a tube down their throat and, blood and just everything. And the arrow is still in him, and it's really scary. And I just went up and I'm like, I'm out. Like, I can't do anything else but pray. And I just like gave him a kiss and said, Jesus is with you. And no matter what, if he died or if he lived, Jesus was going to be with him. So
that whole trust and remembering the mission and the goal of life is heaven. And that's the purpose. And there's going to be suffering in this life, but without our faith in God, the suffering really has no meaning. The world doesn't understand suffering. It sees no value in meaning in suffering, but we know that the suffering of this life is, like St. Paul said, it's nothing compared to the glory of heaven, and our end goal is heaven. The French philosopher, Leon Bloy once said, the only tragedy in life is not to have been a saint. And, even if you were taken at that point, I'm sure your children, Samuel would grow up and know the story of his dad and know how much you loved him. And it's not like he, in a way, you would still have that presence for him. So, it is very, very, very difficult for people who go through suffering and losing my own dad. I understand that. But it doesn't mean God loves us any less. Sometimes God grants miracles, he grants things, but we all have to remember the ultimate goal is heaven.
Right.
And so I think that's one thing that can kind of help people through these challenging situations. So how did this whole experience influence maybe the people around you, your family, your friends, your brothers, your parents? Just like when you go through something like this with somebody so close to you and somebody you love, did it influence their life, or how did they deal with this experience in your view?
Yeah, I mean, when something like this happens, I think it shook all of us, all of our immediate family, and
something beautiful happens when God becomes your only option. That's what our whole family felt.
It deepened their faith. I mean, definitely our faith, but it was almost, I don't know, it was like almost so miraculous of a recovery, which we can go into next, that, everything went back to normal so quickly that it wasn't like that lasting effect that, I don't know if would have really just like altered all of our lives.
Yeah.
But it was like that quick hitter that was like, all right, life can be taken away like that.
Yeah.
But and then we just kind of got back into the
groove of the regular normal
things
life.
go back to normal. So let's talk about things going back to normal. So, we don't really know what's going to happen right after this accident, but what is it like? Tell us how long after the accident are you actually up walking a little bit with a walker?
Yeah. So the day I woke up on that Tuesday, the nurses, they were just kind of, they were testing my reflexes some more, and I was able kind of to wiggle my toes on my left foot and a little bit on my right. It wasn't much. There was a lot of nerve damage, and I think on Thursday, 2 days later, was the first time they were able to get me out of bed. And the physical therapist, you could always tell when they were going to come in. They're like, you could hear them outside of the hospital room. They're like, who's in there? Like, it's the Arrow guy.
You're famous at this point. You're known as the Arrow guy.
Yeah. So they're coming in, and I'm walking off, like using a walker the whole way. I'm just like barely moving my legs, and but I was making really good progress. I ended up being dismissed from the hospital, and I was moved to rehab hospital on that Saturday following the accident. So 6
days later.
Yeah.
And they expected him to be there for 2 to 3 weeks. But then he was at the rehab hospital for only 6 days too, I think.
Yeah, so I was making some pretty crazy progress. I mean, the prayers from our community, they had to, and the grace of God were really coming into play here. And 7 days after the accident week, I walked 50 feet with the walker all by myself. And the 9th day, I walked 50 feet just by myself.
Through the encouragement of his physical therapist, because he really loved his wheelchair.
Yeah.
He could get to the
I can move really fast in a
Those are
wheelchair.
nice. Those things are nice.
Yeah. And now he was slower than the other, like the 80 and 90-year-olds that were in the...
And they always, Rachel and my therapist,
Some race down the hall.
Yeah.
he always joked that it was my blankie. I'm a morning person. I love breakfast. So I was always the first one in line for breakfast.
Wheeling your wheelchair down there.
They take away your wheelchair when they don't think you need it anymore. Not just like, you can use it from this and this. They take it away. So I'm going down to breakfast. I'm leaving early, and these 80 and 90-year-old people are flying by me, going out of breakfast in the wheelchairs. I'm like, oh, this ain't fair.
A little bit of pride there.
Yeah.
But he pushed me so hard, and it was amazing. I was climbing steps on day 10, and I think I was dismissed from the hospital in general in like day 13 after the accident.
Wow. And so not only do you make a recovery, you make an absolute full recovery to the point where you got full use of your legs. You got, at what point were the doctors saying you have no limits, like you can do whatever you want? You can, how long did it take before you didn't have any pain walking up and down stairs and all that other kind of stuff?
I think it's funny because they didn't really know. I think that they found out that you didn't have any limits when you showed them you didn't have any limits.
Yeah, that's what I had a few doctor's appointments, and they were like, we did some ultrasounds, everything's looking great. Like you
can go on a brisk walk,
there's no limitations.
You can run.
Like, so, it kind of led to me just kind of pushing myself further and further. I think I wrote down, it was like day 70 something as I ran a mile, and I was like, all right. Like, I know it was in the snow, I had boots on, I didn't care, I was just running. I was like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah. So this is just really a special case because it's not like, well, you're the third Arrow this year.
Yeah.
No, this is like totally uncharted territory. We don't really know how you're going to recover. But so you run a mile, but at some point you get this crazy idea. So talk about the idea you got you and your brother together. After the experience, you start to recover. You get it in your head that you're going to run a marathon, right? So tell us a little bit about this and how this all turns out.
So my brother was there, like my brother Corey, we're best friends, and he was there every morning in the rehab hospital. He was there. He was just amazing. He was there all the time, and we really grew a lot.
Kristen, amazing.
Yeah, they were such a support system, and Corey, we really just kind of like, we started setting goals for ourselves. We're like, all right, I mean, I can run. Like, we're talking like, let's start doing races. Like I want to get back into running. Like, are we talking 5Ks, 10Ks? We're like, what about a half marathon?
Like that would be crazy.
Like that would, I've never run a half marathon in my life. I did cross country in high school. I probably ran like 10 miles in practice. And then I got into the routine of life and stopped exercising, put on some pounds, got back into running right before the accident. And then we were talking about like a half marathon, and we're like, half marathon, that'd be awesome. Like, what about a full marathon? We're sitting together, and we were on a date night with Corey and Kristen, and me and Corey were talking about this by ourselves, and Corey and Rachel and Kristen are talking, and we're like, what'd you guys think if we ran a marathon? And they're both like, look at us, they're like, you guys can't do it. We're like,
we also were like, no, like he just got shot with an arrow. Like, let's take a step back. Yeah. Let's do a 5K.
So me and Corey look at each other, we're like,
we're doing it.
We're running a marathon.
Plus Corey's wife was also pregnant at the time. So
so there's a lot of decisions that we had to make. Like, can we actually do this? Yeah. And end up running 500 miles in the summer to prepare for it. And
so you picked the date of the marathon, and it is was it October 21st? So it's 364 days. So you're going to beat the whole year mark. You're going to get this done before a year is up. And so tell us about this experience. So you run the Columbus Marathon exactly 364 days after getting shot through both legs with an arrow. That's got to be for you guys and all the people there watching and cheering you guys on. Talk about, I've done a couple marathons. It's like I think I'd rather get shot by an arrow. No, just kidding. But like, talk about that experience of like running the race, finishing the race, and having all your family and friends there to see you less than 1 year after going through this near death experience.
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, just everything you put into it, and just the experience of that day, running with all those people. And the special thing about the Columbus Marathon is that every mile is a child at the nationwide children's hospital. It's like their mile, so you're running it for them. So you're running it for these people who are going through suffering each and every day, like more suffering than I went through. Like, these are young kids who should be out there playing at recess and doing all this stuff, and they're stuck in a hospital with all these different things going on. And so it was special uniting the sufferings I went through and their sufferings, and just saying, you know what, God, this is for you. Like, without you, none of this is possible anyways. Yeah. It's a humbling experience to be able to run a marathon and be healthy enough to do it. And it was something I'll never forget. Yeah.
A lot of us every day complain about having to do chores or to go to work or to have to exercise, but to be able to do it, and after what you've been through, to be able to say, I'm out here and I'm running 26 miles straight, and to do it for other people. When I did mine, the only thing that got me through was I did that whole 26 miles, 26 souls, 26 saints, and just like putting in somebody's name on every mile, and knowing that you can offer up that mile. And one of the things I love about Catholicism is that's what it teaches us, that when we unite our sufferings and our sacrifices to Jesus' sacrifice, to that one true sacrifice, it actually becomes a participation. Like, we can help other souls get to heaven through our own experiences, through our own sufferings, through our own sacrifices. It just brings me, so much joy and so much meaning and purpose to the suffering that we go through. So
absolutely.
So the other thing I want to ask before we end here is that the fact that the police they gave you the arrow, right? They gave you so what did you do? Because I would have my ideas of what I would do with the arrow.
Oh, we know what your ideas are.
I know. Rachel won't allow my idea, but what did you do with this? So you got the arrow. It's got the blood, your blood on it, your experience. What are you going to do with this memento, this arrow that went through, that literally pierced through your body?
I'm going to keep it as a reminder. I'm hoping
he's going to, if we ever have any girls, he's going to show the boyfriends of our daughters.
What her dad did to me.
Yeah.
No, I want to put it somewhere in our house, just as a reminder. Maybe not somewhere right where everyone's going to be walking through, But
John and Collin's idea, you guys thought that it would be a good idea to hang it up in a picture frame, right?
I don't know if there's any Notre Dame fans or people like that. Like Notre Dame has the sign that says "Play like a champion" today, and I started creating these signs that like say "Try your best, let God do the rest," and you put them above the door. So like when you walk out the door, you hit the sign. You're like, oh, I want to play like a champion. I want to live like a saint today. And what better reminder? Like every day is a gift. Like every single day I have from here on out is a gift. And to hit that arrow and be like, oh, I'm going to live like a saint and do my very best to give back. So that was I thought that was.
Yeah, I plan on making a shadow box for it and putting it somewhere in the house. But we're in the process of moving soon. So hopefully I can find a good spot for it.
It'll probably take him a while to make the shadow box. And,
Rachel doesn't really want to see the bloody arrow hanging up.
I'm warming up to the idea. But yeah, the fact that it still has blood on it, I'm just like, still a little weird about blood.
Yeah, but
we'll see.
It's so cool though. It's like not everybody has that little souvenir of saying, "Hey, I got shot by an arrow."
Not everybody.
But not everybody probably wants that.
No.
So, but this has been an amazing experience, amazing testimony, amazing witness that you guys have. And now that you are using your lives and your gifts and your talents and being busy parents and having two little boys at home and raising them and seeing the joy of them grow up and at the same time still using your life to do ministry, which I am extremely grateful for. I know I'm always asking you to do stuff, which, I appreciate all the ministry you do, and I'm sure our high school students do as well, that you volunteer your time to share your faith with them and just be present and be that joyful witness. So thank you for what you guys do. And hopefully this whole story can influence the people that are watching, that are listening to this episode, the fact that your life is an amazing gift that God gave you. The amazing life that you have, and make every single day count. Make every day an opportunity to make a difference in another person's life. When you're going through suffering, you're going through trials, use that suffering and offer it up for the salvation of souls. You have that ability, you have that potential, because we're all in this together. And by God's glory and God's grace, one day we're all going to be standing and at the finish line together and in heaven, celebrating the journey that we made through this amazing life. And so until next time, this is John Wood. I'm just reminding you that you were all made to be saints, so simply try your best and trust in God's grace to do all the rest.
The Extraordinary Mission Podcast was brought to you by the Deep Roots Club, a group of people investing their time, talent, and treasures into helping today's families build deep roots of faith that can weather any storm. Find out more at www.extraordinarymission.com/get-involved.